and so on. We're going to record it so we can send it to you later on. Mark, look, I did a lot of graphic work. Are you ready for this?
Okay, let's go see.
Look at this. So wait, let me see if it works. From fire to fireside chat. So
wow.
The idea is to say that from competition to partners. Crazy graphic work, I know.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was an article that I got published with SaaStr in the very early days of SaaStr in terms of why you should invite all of your competitors to your events. And of course, you were a guest at a couple of my events. I remember you being in the audience. A number of my competitors even exhibited at AdvoCamp when we were doing AdvoCamp. And yeah, no, that's one of the things that's great about a new category is that actually it really does incent companies to work together for the benefit of all customers, as opposed to competing over a few, scraps of the pie. It's better to grow the pie. So even if we were still fighting over market share, I would still be happy to be a guest on your show.
Cool. And just so everybody knows, me and Mark have been chatting literally, I think, for the last 3-4 years. I mean, sometimes more intensely, sometimes less. But even when we were true competitors, we always kept some kind of discussion open. And these days, Mark has joined Base to our advisory and is helping me, as a CEO as well. So this is super exciting for me to get through this discussion. These are some of the things we're going to cover today. 5 minutes about Base, because some people here are new and don't know about us. So just 5 minutes, just who we are for those who don't know us. And then we're going to go into like some of these topics. And again, we also got some questions from the audience, and you can keep them coming. We can't promise we'll get all of them through, but we'll try to get as many as we can through. So we'll want to talk about, where's this industry headed, and what's happening with teams, things like, how are you future-proofing your role, if that's even possible? How is AI impacting our business and our industry specifically? Of course, how the Influitive acquisition impacts, the industry and the business, and so on and so on. And again, well, it's an open discussion, and of course, we'll try to answer questions as we go. So for those who don't know Base, a few things about us before we begin. Base has been around for 5+ years now. We've always been industry and community first. We've had Slack groups. This year we just finished the CMA top 100 the third time. And these are the judges that were just with us and just ended. We just run and led this, and we just announced the CMA top 100 winners in March, Rona? Maybe April, March, right? Early March or end of February.
Last day of February.
Yeah, last day of February. There we go. So just literally a month ago. And we have this webinar. We already have 2 webinars coming up in April and May. So just sign up for webinars on our site, and you'll get the updates. We're going to be in the customer marketing Alliance, I hope I'm not butchering the name, Summit in Boston in April 11 and 12. So if you're Bostonians or coming over or close by, happy to meet you there and see you there. I'm going to talk about, a lot of the CLG and future of this domain as well. And then most importantly, we're going to have Obsession 2024. This is also the 3rd year that we're doing that. San Francisco and Boston might have a date change in Boston. We'll know by the end of the week because of the event and the location, but we'll let you know. And we've opened a call for speakers on the website, so happy to have you join us there. Ron, I don't know if we have the link for call to speakers and for the Obsession site, but for people to see, register, that'd be great. And just for those who don't know what Obsession is, so I mean, these are some of the speakers from last year. We've had more than 40 speakers. It really is, we do a 1 day, day and a half, 2 tracks. One of them is more getting started for people new in the role, smaller teams. One of them is more the advanced for people that have been around, doing more programs and things like that. We have CMO sessions, specifically a short kind of half day just for CMOs. and we have a lot of fun and networking in the events. We celebrate teams that win, so differing from top 100 that celebrates people who are influencers in the category. In Obsession, what we try to do is award teams for best, for the reasons that as teams they've shined and so on. And there's loads of learning and takeaways that I hope all of you can enjoy. So hope to see some of you there. About base, and I promise to keep it short. So customer marketing platform, we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's very relevant to this topic. We started, so like Mark said, we came to sessions with Influitive. We saw what Influitive does around advocacy marketing. We thought that concept is great, but we also had some different thoughts about what is customer marketing beyond advocacy. And we focus as a platform on the holisticity of customer marketing. So we believe that customer marketing should lead all life cycle marketing, all post-sale marketing, including adoption journeys and campaigns, upsell, cross-sell campaigns, community that sometimes is under CS and support and sometimes is under marketing, retention marketing, and of course, the core of, advocacy, references, referrals, and so on. And we built the platform to kind of serve all that and serve all the internal teams. I kind of like to talk about it as what we call a two-sided marketplace. There's the demand, what the internal teams need, sales, marketing, customer success. We need, references, we need speakers, we need somebody to be a beta customer. And then what the supply, the customers that can raise their hand and can do that. And creating that bridge between internal teams and customers beyond advocacy, that's kind of part of what Base does as a holistic system. Here are some of our great customers. And as a system, the way we think about it is we think leading with data is very important. So we like to bring a lot of data from CRMs, from other systems, and basically say, hey, let's help you understand your customer's post-sale journey. Let's understand the account level, the contact level. This person can talk about this product. Here are people that are active in your community. Here are people that can be, that have given feedback on your product. So maybe you want them also as speakers and so on. Then we engage people in many ways and for many use cases, advocacy, growth, retention, reference, feedback, and so on. And we track the impact and how all this, influence revenue. Happy to share more about that offline. Base is really like a lot of people know Influitive and they know the hub. For us, the hub is what we call kind of the experience hub. And that's part of what we do. And our hubs can be standalone like Influitive's hub, or they can be embedded inside your existing community. We also have other ways of engaging customers, email, in-app, and so on. Then we have the CRM hub, the collaboration hub, where the internal teams can actually do that, go in and ask for people, find content, and so on. And then in the middle, you kind of have the brain or management hub and everything that we do. These are some examples of some customer screens. Really love the Mural team for the design and creative work that they've done here on the left. That's like how a very colorful hub can look like. This is HubSpot in their community. So versus in our hub, we're embedded in their community, in-app messages, and so on. And most importantly, we really, really think that this is key. Knowing to measure your programs, knowing to say, hey, we influence retention, we influence growth, upsell, cross-sell, expansion. We influence growth in deals, a deal size coming in with one use case, but because they talked to an advocate, grew to 3 use cases and tripled or doubled, or in Alteryx case, sometimes 5x's the deal size just because the advocate is on the line. So this is really, really, what we strive to talk with. And I think we're also going to talk today, Mark, a little bit about how do we make sure that customer marketing goes, talks about the right metrics. I'm going to skip this, examples of how we run upsell campaigns and whatnot. And this is another topic we're going to talk about, which is AI. And we're showing here one of the AI features that Base has, which is taking any content you have. So you have a customer story, you have a customer video, you have a PDF, and being able to read that story and give you more synopsises about this customer, more tagging about this customer, and then take that, and do things with that new data that you have, but also repurpose, turn a short text like a quote into a customer story, because we know a lot of data that we can populate in that quote to turn it into a customer story or into a blog and so on. But yeah, with that, I think we can, move to our session. So again, Base is really a holistic customer marketing platform for numerous use cases around lifecycle marketing, reference management and advocacy, but let's dive into our topics. And I'll stop sharing my screen again. These are the different things we want to talk about. These are some questions that we got from the audience, so we'll reach later to them as well. But let's start chatting, I guess. Let me stop sharing and start the chatting. So I guess the first question that I'm sure some people would want to ask is, what the heck happened with Influitive, Mark? Sorry for being blunt.
Yeah. You know, I guess there's probably a long answer for that. That's maybe less interesting. And that I think that the company was a little stagnant for the last 2-3 years. As people know, I wasn't running the company. I stepped down in 2019, and a new leadership team had taken over. And I think they tried a bunch of different things in order to, improve the economics of the company, which I think really never got into a much better place. And to be honest, I think just the team and the board of directors just got tired. It became a VC dominated board after I left. I really like having independence on board and people with a long-term view, but people may know that venture capitalists have a 10-year life cycle of their fund, and they only have so many boards that they can sit on. So to be blunt, honestly, I just think that people just got tired, and it's unfortunate. I actually did consider buying back the company, which is something I could have done. But there's a lot of things there are a lot of things you could get with the company. There are a lot of great customers that come on board, but there's also legacy, right? I founded Influitive in 2010. That makes it a 14-year-old company. And yes, there are a bunch of things that got renewed in the technology and whatnot, but there are also things that are old, and that's going to take a lot of time to retrofit. So I'm still very excited about the industry. I'm very excited about the category. And it's one of the reasons why I'm involved with BASE, is that I think the category is very exciting. To some degree, my name is attached to it. I mean, I wrote the category book back in 2017, which probably needs a refresh now.
Yeah, you founded the category. Your name is definitely attached to it.
It's attached to it. So I want to see it do well. And I think it will do well. I think there's absolutely massive potential, transformational potential in this category, and of course it's evolved, as you mentioned, which actually all great categories do. It's evolved from advocate marketing, so where it started, into what you're calling customer lifecycle marketing or customer-led growth. I mean, I've seen a bunch of different names that are out there. That is a monster of an idea. It's still a monster of an idea, right? That your customers, I mean, one of my big insights in founding a company is that customers are more effective salesmen and women and marketers than often your own people are. That was actually my big blinding insight in terms of why I founded this company, was that when you arm, customers with, when you give them the organization and some of the motivation and the knowledge needed, they're way more effective at going to market than your employees are, because they speak customerese. They're one of them. And are also effective in lots of other things. I mean, this is why I think customer lifecycle marketing works, right? Is that, when it comes to, let's say, product or engineering or even operations, we've had some crazy stuff in operations happen. Who better to understand the needs of other customers than customers themselves? Often better than your own salespeople and marketers and product people and engineers and whatnot. And so I think that foundational insight is still very much true today, and we've just scratched the surface of what the potential is.
Yeah, and I agree, and I would double on that and say that we haven't even seen the influence of AI, but what we have seen in the market, and this goes to market trends, is first of all, and there's always these researchers about trust going down So as trust goes down, what customer voice becomes more impactful because people even more so want to trust. Like there's a research by Trust Radius that they do every year, and they kind of show that people trust less salespeople and less, the website content you have and so on. And they want more and more to hear your voice of customer and your direct voice of customer. But with AI, it's even going to be worse because think about it. People are going to search in ChatGPT. They're not going to go to Google. And people are, and
Yeah.
ChatGPT is going to spit out the answer. They don't know where the answer came from. Maybe it came
Yeah.
from a verified source. Maybe it just came, we know that sometimes it hallucinates. And yes, it's going to get better. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's going to be more, because of AI, there's going to be even more and more distance between companies and their content and their buyers. And because there's going to be more distance because of all these chatbots in the middle, the true voice of customer, when I really want to make a decision and I really want to talk to somebody, that's where, I think the power of leveraging customers and advocacy is just one use case, but you also talked about like, hey, let's leverage customers for product feedback, right? And we know that, like, not just get feedback on, who can be a beta customer, but also help us build a better product, really collaborate with them to build better products and better thoughts, help them, how do we improve our messaging? So not just have marketing, have them talk in an event, but also ask them about, hey, what do you think about the messaging on our website? What do you think about, this story and so on? So I think there's a lot of potential down there.
About everything. And that was, again, we didn't talk about it as much as at Influitive because it was, an earlier stage of the category. But I mean, we used it for everything. I mean, maybe most infamously, all the songs at our conference were picked by by customers. Our customers created their own dance. And actually, that wasn't even a challenge. That was really a customer-led thing that did that. It's the potential is great, and that was probably one of the big goals for me and for the category was just to dissolve the walls between your company and your customers.
Right.
How do you have them so that they really are part of everything? How do you make it a reflex, an instinct, right? So today, for example, when you want to do really almost any initiative in the company, usually the instinct is to throw up a web page, send out a bunch of emails, right? That's the instinct today. How do we change that so that the instinct is to go to the customers and get their insight and get them to do what it is that we need to do for the collective to be successful? And that's kind of a question that we ask ourselves all the time. How do we get better at this? How do we get our customers better at this? Because we felt like the companies that were able to leverage their customers the best were the ones that were likely to win. And they're not going to do that by manipulating customers. They're not going to do this. It's not by ruse. It's by actually doing more for them. It's by delivering more value for customer advocates. That's probably another sort of big insight that we had at Influitive, really at the foundational stage. Like before I even started the company, I interviewed over 800 super advocates, a lot of people. I found them on LinkedIn. I asked a simple question, like, who is a huge fan of companies and does like a lot of work for companies? So I found them on LinkedIn. People were actually pretty enthusiastic to talk to me. It became very clear like that this is something that they really wanted to do, but there are a lot of things that we could do to make it more appealing. We could reduce the energy required to advocate. We could increase the reward to advocate. And that was part of sort of the foundational insight of the company. So it's not by manipulating them. It's actually by delivering more value for our customer advocates. And then it's something that is not hard. It's something that they really want to do and value doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, moving forward to where the industry is today. So we've seen a few things happen. First of all, yes, Influitive acquisition and kind of just circling back to that. So I think just for everybody to understand, and, again, without us going too much into the details, like Mark said, there's, the real life, but then there's VC economics. And sometimes companies like, have such decisions like acquisitions that are not necessarily fully embedded in real life or in how good or bad the category is or the company is doing. It's embedded in the VC's decisions. And, are we interested in keeping going with this, or do we want to kind of sell this business off our portfolio? And I think that's something for people to understand. I mean, so I think that's something like when I talk to people and they ask me, okay, but if the biggest player in the category has been sold, what does it tell us all about the category? And I think what it tells us all is that there were gaps there of making this more strategic for sure, and we all need to think how we make it more strategic. And this is part of what we're going to talk about today. But there was also just microeconomies and dynamics of VCs and companies that you don't really want to know and you don't really want to care about and you don't really need to take decisions based on. So I guess going forward and making this more strategic, how are we, what does customer advocacy, customer marketing look like in 2025? Okay, how do we get it from where it is today to a place where it is strategic? One of the questions, from the people in the audience was like, do executives really care? Do CMOs, CEOs, chief revenue officers, do they really care about this? So, I mean, where do you think the market is going? And we dropped the names like customer-led growth, which we in Base kind of, coined and love. There's elements of customer experience, customer engagement marketing. What do you think about all of that?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So I think that in order for this category to succeed, to improve, I mean, it needs to drive more value and also have less friction and cost less, right? And actually, I think that was one of probably the bigger challenges with Influitive, again, being an older platform, started in 2010, was that oftentimes there's too much friction for customer marketers to drive value, right? And so that's one area that I'd love to see the category improve in. I think AI can play a massive role in that, right? In helping customer marketers step up and do more. As many people on this call know, customer marketing is not a large department and often have to do lots of things, right? What I've seen, customer marketing often doubles as event marketing and product marketing, lots of other things, and have to do more with less. And I think these platforms also need to be able to do more. They need to enable people to do a lot more with less. And so I'm very excited about the role that AI can play in terms of writing more effective challenges, in terms of doing better point systems, in terms of better connecting people together, better connecting prospects and customers together. There's really so many things, so many opportunities that I see for AI there. So that's on the sort of cost and friction reduction side of things. And then on the other side, one of the things I think we talked about it before, Gal, is that there is often a disconnect between what top executives want to see and the value that they want, and that what the customer marketing team can sometimes obsess about. And this may be partially our fault at Influitive, because one of the things that we really pushed for, and it really was a big win, at least in the short term, was really surfacing that, especially like the advocate marketing, the community metric value, and surfacing that to the admins, right? And it really did work, right? Because one of our research showed that when the administrators were creating more challenges, when they were more engaged with their advocate users and such, the usage went up and the value went up, right? So there was lots of those metrics. Like, here's how you're doing relative to your peers, and again, that was a good sort of short-term win, But then the potential downside is that you may have people that are obsessed about metrics that actually don't really necessarily relate to what a CMO and what a CEO cares about. So, like, one of the things that I'll give you one example that was very common. Like, when I went to go and see customers, and I would, of course, see more senior customers because I have access to them. They were often, at least when I was doing these tours, sort of 2018, 2019, cross-sell and upsell was really important. Like, customer expansion was something that was on everyone's list, because for some reason, like, demand gen was getting more difficult. And that's really where there's so much potential money to be made, for a company just to increase your share of wallet by 2%, 3%. That can be worth tens of millions of dollars. But then when I would go back to look at the Advocate Hub, there'd be nothing of cross-sell and upsell in there. I'd be like, what's going on, right? Why is this message not trickling down? So, one of probably a great benefit for me to go and visit senior executives is to find out what they care about and make sure that we're delivering things that senior executives care about. So what do they care about? I mean, they care about the key strategic initiatives of the company. So if you're in customer marketing and you don't know what the key strategic initiatives are of your company, that is a problem. You should know what the
Totally.
top 5 OKR. What are the OKRs in the top class, right? What do they really care about? How do we deliver on them? So, like, for example, I've seen this before. Your company's made an acquisition, and it's a really important strategic acquisition. Is your advocate community, or whatever, your customer hub, whatever you call it, is it supporting that new acquisition that was made? Because if it isn't, right, then you're not actually driving what are the most strategic, important things of the company. So understand strategic initiatives and drive them, and then understand what these big metrics around retention, around NRR, around shortening the sales cycle. I mean, whatever it is that the companies really care about. How do we use our customers to drive that? And I think one of the most exciting things about this category, the thing I love about it the most, is that customers help with everything. And they help it on multiple levels, like everywhere in the funnel, from the top of the funnel to the post funnel. The same person, the same advocate is helping to renew a deal, is helping to grow your sales, is helping to drive new leads, and is helping to pick a song at your conference. Like, all these different things. The same person, like, that is massive. Like, that's just massive scalability. And that's why I think the company that's able to leverage their customers are the ones that do the best, because you're having these people who are so good at what they do because they speak customer language and they're doing all these things, and you're not paying them anything, right? You're just delivering value for them. I mean, it's just awesome, right?
Yeah. And just to double down on that. So I think you're right. Like, the industry, the first 10 years or 14 years with with Influitive, but I mean, it was a lot about advocacy and I would say, like, excelling in advocacy, right? And whatever that means, but excelling in advocacy and getting, the right audience of advocates, the right challenges or actions with them, getting them more involved in different things and whatnot. I think, at least from my perspective, and when I think about where this industry is going, what's changing, so you kind of hit the nail on its head. We need to show more value to become more strategic. And you're right that what the value that we think we are showing sometimes is not necessarily the value that the CEO or the CMO or the CRO or the CCO care about. They care about money. They care about, dollars, influence. They care about either, when you think about it, how is this program helping us either reduce costs? And you gave a lot of ideas. Hey, they can help with ideas for whether they can help with support. They can help with ideas for the event. They can help with, things like that. So how do they help us reduce costs, or how do they help us, of course, generate more revenue, new business from advocacy, upsell, cross-sell, expansion, retention? And we have customers like Alteryx. Lewis has this great, slide where he says, hey, the people in our program, not only did they help us grow the business when they do references, they themselves retain longer than all the rest. They grow and upsell much faster than all the rest. So I think, first of all, it's being able to show those numbers that people care about beyond engagement, which are revenue numbers. And secondly, it's, I think, also being able to think about, like, then how do we grow the audience? Because when we think advocacy, we kind of actually many times think of the smallest audience possible. These are the 200, the 500 top people, top advocates. These are the people that are powers, super advocates, whatever. And that's amazing. But that's a subset of your audience. Like, we talk about communities, we always say there's only a subset, maybe 10% that are really going to be active. Then there's 30% that are going to be mildly active, but then 70% are just going to be, come into the community, view, go out. So I think there's talking through value is how do we create value with the entire customer base, right? And that's kind of where we think of CLG and we think about customer-led growth is all customers, where advocates are a very important segment of those. They are, you know, the spearhead of the customers, but there's still everything behind them.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things that we used to say at Influitive is that everybody has a little bit of advocacy in them. So, you know, what you talk about, you know, the top 200, or even within the top 200, there's like a top 20. Within the top 20, there's the top 5 of your, you know, call them whales and super whales or something, right? That's what the casino industry calls them, whales, your top customer. But, you know, just like in a casino, everyone has a little bit of gambling in them. I mean, everyone has a little bit of advocacy in them. And you know, how do you promote that? How do you promote people? How do you increase people's level of advocacy, so that the people who do, you know, four acts a week go up to 8, and those who do 4 acts a year go up to 8, you know?
Exactly.
So, and yeah, and so while I do, what you say is right, that we have to drive more strategic value and whatnot, I still think those micrometrics still matter, right? So, I mean, when we looked at our top customers, and I don't know if you do a capability maturity model at base, I'm a big fan of capability maturity models. I think they're wonderful. You know, that was something that was really important at Influitive. And, you know, when we're always trying to get our customers, and just not just our customers, the industry in general, to adopt these ideas more, right? So as you go from, for example, adopting customers just in your marketing department into sort of other areas of the company, like product and engineering and operations, you're moving up a level. And then when you get to your sort of top level, what I saw of some of our very best customers is that they looked at their advocate community, which today maybe you'll call your customer community, of which advocates is a subset of them,
right,
as a major strategic asset for the company. So the same way that brand forward companies, they know the value of their brand. They've calculated 3 different ways, and at every board meeting, they talk about where is the brand going, and have we added value to the brand, or have we reduced value to the brand? So companies that are at a high level of maturity have that same level of sophistication around their customer community. How engaged is their customer community? Are they doing more or less? Are they happy? You know, what do we need to do to get to the next level? What are the next big initiatives that we have in order to improve this community and make them, you know, even more energized? And so that's something I think there's a lot of room in the category to get better at, which means that I think Base could get better at this, as well as other companies in the space, and probably a big way to get the category widely adopted. I mean, the same way that, again, in consumer world, you know, brand marketing is heavily adopted. Everybody knows they need a brand and they need to develop it, and there's metrics around it. I think that we're going to see the same thing, or should see the same thing, around customer marketing metrics.
Right. And I think I have 2 thoughts on, you know, when we think about where this industry is going. I think, you know, 2 things, and happy to hear your thoughts about that. I want to talk about more programs, less tools. I'll explain. So why more programs? And you tapped into it when you said about, you know, tied to company objectives. Super right. We always tell people, start your program not with a platform, start your program with a strategy, and start your strategy with understanding what your company strategy is. So what happens today is that if you're running an advocacy program, you should assume, number one, every year it's going to change. Your KPIs or what you should achieve this year might be different next year, because if you do align with company strategies change. Once they changed, you know, a while ago they changed every 5 years. Now they change every year. For some companies, they change every quarter. So I mean, if you tie your program to company goals, to company OKRs and KPIs, you should expect that to benchmark and kind of verify that your program is still on track with company goals and OKRs and KPIs every quarter, definitely every year, and shift based on that. Like you said, we had an acquisition. How do we leverage? And that's important for us. How do we leverage customers for that? So I think that's one reason why people should expect to do more programs. Before, maybe it was just quote unquote advocacy. Now they have also programs around customer voice, or around, like you said, events, or around, so they should expect to actually do more programs than they did before, more types of activities than they did before. That's one thing that I think is going to happen because they are going to tap into more company goals and activities. And the other thing I think is going to happen is less tools. And this is about, we see, and especially in the last 2-3 years, an age of, there was in the boom of SaaS, there was so many tools, so many platforms and whatnot. Now we kind of see an age of consolidation, right? So you have, Salesforce is a mammoth with everything that they have, but even like Gainsight, closer to our domain, they bought a community platform, they bought an education platform. 2 other companies in the customer success space, Totango and Catalyst, merged M&A. Even in our space, I just saw that Sam announced, from Testimonial Hero that they combined with him. So they do video testimonials, and they took somebody that does text, testimonials and whatnot. So, I think what's happening in SaaS in general, in marketing more specifically, and in customer marketing as well, is that you're going to have less tools. The company is going to tell you, take one tool, one platform that can help you do what you need to do, not 25 tools or whatever it is to do that. And it's great, not because the company only wants to save money, but it's also great because when you have one tool, when you have a platform, ideally, you can connect the dots. You can see, how all these programs work. So if you have multiple programs and you have, a platform to kind of foster them, you could kind of see what's working and whatnot. You could also serve the internal teams and give more data about the journey. So this is base belief from the get-go, but I think we're seeing in the industry this kind of shift of way more programs, but less platforms and tools. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think if you look at the evolution of many categories, right? And that is just why I keep talking about categories. That is actually my area of expertise now. I run a company called Category Knots. I deliver coaching and consulting for category developing companies. And it's what I did at Eloqua and Influitive. So it's kind of where I'm focusing my scholarly energy, so to speak. You see these sort of sine wave of consolidation and then new innovation. We get new players in the space, right? You could have, Mark Benioff probably said the same thing in 2008. It's like, there's going to be a big consolidation where there's going to be less tools and more programs, because everyone's going to be, using Salesforce and things like it. But of course, there's a massive proliferation of new tools that were created, Influitive being one of them. Right. And Gainsight being another one, interesting one in the customer success space. A whole bunch of other tools. And of course, then there's a consolidation where you see that as, for example, in customer success, where you had a proliferation of players, and now there's a lot less players and they're building whole suites. And trying to figure out like where the boundaries of that category are, right? And I think that's what you're trying to do also at Base. You're expanding your platform, you're doing more, your platform doing more things, and trying to figure out where that is. So yes, I think that you may see less tools, and then you're going to see more tools again. It's going to come out of nowhere. Everyone's going to be shocked. Like I remember I had a great discussion with my ex-head of marketing, Jim Williams, when Snapchat came out. And I made a prediction, and I said, Snapchat's going to be a massive business tool one day. And he's like, no way, man. Snapchat's a joke. It's like, why would you say that? I'm like, why would I say that? Because that's just what happens. Like, it's what happened with Twitter. It's what happened like with all these things that used to be toys, and no one really gave a second thought about it. Reddit. Oh my God, Reddit's hilarious. So yeah, I remember when, and probably one of the probably most important meetings I had at Influitive, very, very early at Influitive, and we barely even had a product back then. I think we had a product like barely in beta. It was a joke. And I went to see my friend Ken, who was running marketing at a company called Case Networks, which is now Dell Case, because he was a customer of mine at Eloqua. And I thought it was going to be a casual meeting, just Ken and like someone else in marketing. And then the CEO shows up to the meeting, I guess the general manager, but whatever. This is a 350 person company, and he just shows up to the meeting. And I'm like, who am I? I'm just like some random pitcher coming in to talk to the marketing guy and to get him to see what he thought of what I was building. Like it wasn't even like a real sales call. And he's like, the reason why I'm here is I heard what you're working on and it's something really important to me. Right. And he goes to Ken, he goes, why is it important to me, Ken? And Ken goes, because we don't do any effing marketing around here unless customers are attached to it. And that's how when I knew I was really on to something, right? Because here you have the CEO who this is a passion of his that he wanted customers sort of out front, you know, in terms of the brand. So you know, that's what I knew was really important. But the reason why I brought up Reddit is that one of the questions that we ask, and I think everybody should do this in their customer communities, is to ask, you know, the customer advocates, what is influential for you now that was like completely off your radar screen 6 months ago? Okay. This is a very valuable question. It can change your life. It can make you hundreds of millions of dollars if you ask this question. And most of the time, you're going to get an answer back that's not interesting. But every now and again, you're going to get an answer that is really interesting. And so Case Networks at the time, this was 2013. Okay. So Reddit was, I don't know, like just a place for terrorists and memes and stuff. And a bunch of people, CIOs, said, you know, there's really great stuff on Reddit about security, like cybersecurity stuff and all the things we do. And everyone was like, what? Really? Like people talk about real business on Reddit? And the answer is yes, they did. And so one of the things that we did, and it really helped Case rocket to the top of their industry, was we owned Reddit. Like we helped them own Reddit. Okay, no one else was in there. But we found out that it was really important. And then now there's all this great information about, you know, about that company and about that product, you know, that's in there. So yeah, I think like finding out what's next, what's a underutilized platform that could be exploited is kind of a massive thing. And I did have a point with that whole story, and maybe it'll come to me next time.
Leverage your customers, ask them what's important, then shift your customers over there, like helping them win over Reddit. Yeah, I get it. You went full circle there. So I guess last question, then let's dive into audience questions, is around AI. So how is AI shifting everything that we're doing as customer marketers, that our industry is doing? Like, what should people, you know, think when they think about AI? Like, you know, I think the first thought that people have sometimes is like, is this going to take my job? And then, but I mean, like, what should they prepare for when they think about how AI is going to influence my role as an advocacy manager, customer marketing manager, going forward?
Yeah, so good. You know, and the answer to the question, like, will AI replace me? The answer is maybe. It could. You know, let's look at previous innovations. You know, I'll just from my own company. I ran two companies at Eloqua and Influitive. At Eloqua, I had 13 people in QA, in quality assurance. So quality assurance is the function of a company whose job it is to break the product, find errors, and fix them before customers find them. I had 13 people out of 165 people who did that. At Influitive, I had 2. And they did 5 times as much work as those 13 other people. You know, I remember a very sweet lady who worked in QA, and she was passionate about QA at Influitive. I mean, which is weird because like QA is just not a thing that I think most people would get passionate about. But to her credit, she loves QA, and she did QA the old-fashioned way, and she was really proud of it. You know, the way that you might hand make a sweater. She handmade her, her testing. And, you know, the leader of our QA department had a vision of automated quality assurance, which now that is pretty much like standard. Everyone does that. And she was not on board with that vision. And unfortunately, she had to go. And last time I checked, her career is doing great. She's a product manager now. So she's not even in QA anymore. But I think, you know, AI has the ability to do just what I said, take what 13 people used to do, and now 2 people do it, and they do 5 times as much work. So how do you get to be one of those 2 people instead of one of those 11 people that are finding other lines of work today? Well, what the QA people are remaining? They're completely changed their skill set. Okay, their job is to create scripts now. They're actually programmers now. They're not there to just test edge cases. So I think you can do the same. You can really look at AI as the same sort of thing. And I think one thing everybody should be doing, I spend at least half an hour a day playing with AI tools, new AI tools, trying to understand what these things do, so that I am not a victim. I am a person who's leveraging technology as opposed to being obviated by it. There are AI CEO coaches out there right now. I mean, right? I don't feel at risk of losing my job yet, but who knows, right? I really should be using AI in my coaching probably a lot more than I am today. So I think use those tools, understand kind of the shape of them and what it is that they do, and try to really reimagine your job. Like, what if 80% of what you did today was automated? What's the 20% that really drives most of the value? Where does your creativity come in? Where does your ability to build networks across your company? I mean, this is a big one, right? We talked about, well, driving KPIs and whatnot. Well, that happens because as customer marketers, we're interacting with other people in the company. Yeah, I one time actually had a great opportunity, a very rare opportunity, to spend 2 days with an entire company that used my product, an entire management team. But it was interesting. 2/3 of the management team had no idea who we were and what we were doing there. And that's probably because the customer marketer was not actually really engaging enough with the rest of that leadership team and showing them how they could drive value. And AI is not going to do that, right? That's what we need humans to do. Humans are the ones that build relationships and networks. And so, I'd be spending more time doing that, because I would have to assume that at some point, a number of the repetitive, transactional, tactical things that I do today are going to be done by a machine tomorrow. And I'm going to assume they're going to happen. What are the parts of my job that just cannot be automated away? How do I double down and triple down on that to drive more results in the company? Yeah. And I saw too, and I've seen this with every category that I've studied. The old school Luddites do get replaced. I saw that with, I'll call them old school reference managers, which is the people who we first encountered in this category, were people who just set up reference calls and maybe did the occasional case study and whatnot. These were not the brightest lights typically in the marketing department. And in many companies, they were really resisting us at Influitive. They found our ideas dangerous. And you mentioned Alteryx. Alteryx is a company that had one of those people in it, and good for you, you found a way around her.
Alteryx has an amazing team today, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, chances are that person I'm talking about is probably gone. Who really saw things in an old-fashioned way. We came in with technology-forward solutions, saying you could do all these different acts of advocacy in one platform, with a community focus. I mean, very different from existing ways of driving advocacy. But, those people are gone for the most part. I don't think they're really in the industry anymore. I haven't been to Bill's event in a while. Bill's event had lots of those people in it. But that's really been supplanted. So I think that, for the people on this call, there is a danger that if you're not on the right side of technology, if you've not really analyzed where this is going, that you might end up as one of these Luddite people instead of the ones that are driving the future.
Yeah, I want to keep the last 10 minutes for questions, and there's a lot, so I'm going to go through them. Let's kind of, make sure that we kind of have short answers as much as we can for these ones, so we can cover as many as we can. Just to kind of tap back to the AI point, I think you're totally right. I would say, it's going to take 2 or 3 years to understand what's happening with AI in every single industry. So it's not that tomorrow morning necessarily, like you said, from a team of 13, we're going to have a team of 2. But you're right, it definitely may happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And that's where we need to think both, we as vendors, where does AI help our people, customer marketers, to do a better job, even if they have less resources, and there's lots of ways to do that. It's a different discussion, but also, you're right, most importantly for people to think, how do I partner with AI? How do I leverage this new technology to actually help me do more in my job, help me shine my star, versus, shy away from it and wait till, whatever is going to come in the next 2 or 3 years. But yeah, so let's start with some questions we have. So this is not them, sorry. This is them. So the first thing that we have, Alexandra asked, what is the future of Influitive going to be like with support? You're not there anymore. I'm not sure you can answer this one, but
Yeah, I can't answer that. Even if I was still on the board of Influitive, I don't know if I could answer that. I hope they're going to do the right thing. Look, I mean, the company that bought Influitive, their business model is to try to retain as much of the customers as they can. So that said, they're also putting it together with other products like Jive Community and other things like that. So who knows what's going to happen there? I hope that it'll be good, because my name's still kind of associated with it.
yeah. And I think, yeah, and it's okay to assume that when companies buy, products, there's, they're going to look also to reduce costs. They're going to look to bundle in, support teams and whatnot. So, in the short term, there's going to be a lot of, different things that are going to happen. In the long term, they'll figure out support as well. So the next question from Robert is, what do you feel are the key triggers to get senior execs engaged in advocacy activities and co-marketing?
Yeah, I mean, that one's really simple. It's just like drive their results, right? I think that customer marketers should be spending, a bunch of time doing networking and diplomacy in the company and asking how they could help. Because the greatest thing about your job is that you can help out pretty much everybody in the company. Almost every major function goes better with customer action and involvement. So what I would do is say, hey, Bob, what are your objectives and key results, or what are your KPIs or whatever? What are you trying to drive this year? And maybe there's something I can do to help. And I think you're going to get a lot of attention from people, a lot of insight and involvement if you're helping people achieve their goals. Probably a good principle for life in general, to help people achieve what it is that they want to achieve.
And it doubles down into what Steve is also asking, like, how do you get the CXO, to take customer marketing seriously and look at it beyond? And there's also two questions from somebody anonymous in the Q&A, but one of them is about how do you know what's critical or a priority to those executives? How do you get those executives then to understand why they should invest in customer marketing platforms or programs? So I think all of these questions tie together to what maybe one of the biggest challenge that customer marketers have in our industry is, how do I get executive leadership to understand the value of this program and invest in it? And I'll put my 2 cents, and then you can kind of iterate as well on yours. But I mean, I think, like Mark said, you have to tie it to their goals, not your goals. How do you know what their goals are? Really, you have to ask. You have to say, hey, listen, I have this secret weapon. It's called our customers or advocates. Imagine that they can do anything you want. Now, where are we struggling? Are we struggling with support? Let's think how we can maybe leverage them for that. Are we struggling with retention? Maybe existing customers can help us with that. Are we struggling with, getting our messaging right? They can help with that. Of course, customer stories, videos, and so on. But I think when you go one by one to departments, and one of the tactics could be actually not starting with the executive. That's things people don't go to the CMO, don't go to the chief customer officer, don't go to the CEO. Go one level below. Ask their manager, the people that they manage. Those are the directors or the VPs. They should be more accessible to you, and B, they will help you gain some insights. And then you ask them, what are the things that your department is working on? What is key for you and what is key for your boss? And you kind of map, okay, so now I've talked to three let's say VPs or directors in the customer success department. I know what's important for them. Now I can come to their boss, to the VP or the chief customer officer, and say, hey, I heard from Lisa and Joe and Sarah, these are the things that are really painful. First of all, is that correct? Because I have some ideas how I can help you. So I think that's where, some of the questions people say, how do you do it? You start with one tier below them, you get some insights, and then you come to them with very relevant answers. And then through that, you actually, also ask them, is this right? What is the 2-3 KPIs that you care about? And here's maybe how I can help you with my program. What do you think about that?
I think that sounds pretty solid to me. I think that sounds solid. I do think ultimately you do want to understand what the top executives care about. Hopefully your company's done a good job of publishing all of that so that you don't necessarily have to ask a lot of people that what the top strategic initiatives are. But yeah, no, I agree with the things you said. There are some areas that I think really do hit home for top leadership, including the CEO. One of the things that I've seen before, I don't know if you've seen it, Gal, too, is that when the program has a lot of product marketing uses in it, like pricing, packaging, messaging, like that, those are very impactful at a strategic level. Okay. Look, I love the demand gen use cases too. When you're generating tons of referral leads, it's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
It's great. You're going to get your renewal when your customer's generating a bunch of referral leads, because those referral leads are money in the bank. It's a big insight of why I started Influitive in the first place. What I didn't appreciate when I started Influitive is how important some of these product marketing use cases are, where we had companies that had their own customers create award-winning ads, as an example, and those ads were so impactful that they really rocketed the company up to the top of their marketplace. This is Okta as an example. Okta is a pretty early customer of ours that Influitive. And so there are some areas where top leadership really are sensitive, and that's one of them. Another area that I've seen are things like product launches and customer events. And that's because there's some embarrassment on the line for the CEO if these things fail, right? If the product launch is a dud, that CEO is going to look foolish in front of their board of directors and potentially even Wall Street. So we're talking about something that might impact his or her job. So if you make your product launch or your customer event amazing because of your customer involvement, you're going to really punch way above your weight, right? So I would be looking at some of these things that may seem smaller, but actually have a disproportionate amount of leverage or impact in the company. And those are a couple of examples that I've noted there.
Yeah. I know we're at time. So first of all, thank you for everybody who joined. We had more than 80 people at peak, which is amazing. Join us. And thank you, Mark, for sharing your insights and whatnot. We're going to stay a few more minutes and try to answer 2 or 3 more questions for those who do want to stay. But, for those who have to drop for another meeting, thank you so much. We'll share the recording. We appreciate Mark coming over and sharing his insights and his learning. Hopefully you took away some things about how to, what can you do in your role? What can you do around, AI? What can you do around getting executive alignment, which sounds like a core thing that we might have another webinar around. But yeah, so thank you, Mark, first of all, before we continue to other questions. And thank you for those who came and for those who can stay a few more minutes. But yeah, so just tapping into a few more questions here. So we have a question from Zoe and asking about, now, do you believe in product stickiness or is customer loyalty based on kind of excellent implementation and customer, relations?
I see. This is like an either or thing. So do you believe that product is what keeps the customer engaged, or is the implementation?
It's a bit of a PLG versus a CLG question.
Yeah, this is this is an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, I think product stickiness sort of suggests that there is a lot of friction if you were to remove it.
Yeah.
Whereas the other side is that, it's if implemented really well and it's driving, key metrics and success in a company. Um, and so you probably have a mix of both, is my guess, right? I think at the end of the year, and especially now, it's actually very interesting because CFOs today, I've heard, have a mandate to whack a lot of software spend. And I think a lot of the people on this call work at software companies. I do think the category is broadening. I think we're seeing more and more companies outside of tech all the time in financial services and manufacturing and whatnot, but it's still largely tech is who's adopted this the most. So we have a lot of software company people here. And so CFOs are out on the hunt looking for at least 30%, savings. So I think every year or even more frequent, CFO is leading a committee to say who needs to get shot this year. We don't need to spend on next year.
Yeah.
And so you probably have a mix of both, right? You'd imagine the CFO says, let's take out this base.ai thing. We don't need base, right? And then hopefully you've got people that says, no, you can't remove base because if you do, this is going to happen. We're going to lose all this value and whatnot. But it's also like, well, so what? What if we get that in some other way? Well, it's integrated with all these other things we're doing. It's integrated with these 5 other products. It's integrated with all these processes. It'll be a nightmare if we were to remove it. So hopefully you got both of those going, right? It's a nightmare if we ever want to remove it. And on the other side is it's driving a lot of great value.
Yeah.
I don't see it as an either or thing.
I agree.
But I will say that if I had to choose one, or the other, I would go for the excellence in implementation and attaching to key processes and key results and whatnot.
Yeah.
All of us today use products that are difficult to use, and we use it anyway, even though it's annoying, and that's because it's driving results that we want to see.
Right.
So I'll double down on that.
Yeah. And in general, I mean, just very few products have really, huge product stickiness. Yes, Slack and email, they probably don't need to do much work anymore around implementation and customer relations. But I mean, even though Slack probably more so now, but I mean, it's at the end, only few products really are very much used daily by big teams. And yeah, those products kind of win on the product stickiness side, but most products have to do that work around better implementation, better showing value, making sure that you have relations with the right people that help you kind of succeed in that company. So yeah, other questions we had here. So Shweta, I hope I pronounced this correctly, was asking in the Q&A, increasingly seeing customer marketing roles managing product marketing. Are these roles now being coupled in many organizations? Do you think that, so I don't see so much customer marketing managing product marketing. I do see a lot of product marketing manage customer marketing, but interesting. What do you think about these two roles, product marketing versus customer marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the pairings that I do see a lot, especially, earlier stage. Obviously, when a company gets bigger, we had customers that had entire departments of customer marketing, of a dozen people or 20 people or whatnot. But I think product and customer marketing together is something that we see often. And I really liked seeing that at Influitive. I knew that when we had that, we often had a more strategic implementation compared to demand gen and customer marketing together, which is something you also see. And I think it really depends on the point of view of the marketing department, or maybe even going up to the CEO in terms of what the role is of customer marketing. Is the role of customer marketing to go and win more deals because of great referrals and references? That's what I first saw when I started Influitive, right? Is that was the big demand at the time in 2009, 2010. But of course, that had evolved over time, and I think the most sophisticated customer marketers really are very interested in product marketing, which is really the most strategic area of marketing, right? So this is, again, this is our go-to-market strategy. Who are we going after? How are we going after them? What's their offering going to be? It doesn't get any more strategic than product marketing. It's even more strategic than product management. It's the most strategic function of a company, in my view. So if we're customer marketers, we love to see product marketing and customer marketing join at the hip. That's awesome. And it means that the company sees customers as strategic. They don't see them as just a way to win more deals.
Got it. Okay. Last question here, I guess, or that we had a question from Sue about their VC. Blackstone is also wanting to see like what they're doing in their community. So not only do they need to know what their exec team wants, they also now need to know what their owners or VCs are looking at. Do you have any tips on how can they know what VCs care about, or what kind of the owners care about?
I'd invite them to the community. I mean, we used to have so at Influitive, we had a humongous shareholder base for a private company. It was like over 100 shareholders. I did like a couple of party rounds, and I had a lot of people, and I also encouraged all of our employees to buy stock, their parents and other relatives to buy stock. We had a lot of shareholders in the company. And one of the reasons why is because now you have an army of shareholders too. You don't just have an army of customers. You got an army of shareholders that can help to help you in terms of winning new deals and help to hire people and whatnot. So we would have regular contests for them. One of my Series B VCs still has a plaque in his office, Value Added Investor of the Year Award, which really helps him when he's trying to close an entrepreneur to take his money instead of some other guy. He's like, look, I'm value added. I'm a value added investor. So I would actually I would invite them in the community. I would have a separate place for them, figure out what it is they want, and engage them. These people are often have incredible connections and can help out in a variety of very important ways. So again, that's one of the beauty of this whole model, is that it's really all stakeholders. And we talk a lot about customers, but we also had communities for employees, for shareholders, for partners. Partner communities are very interesting. And it's another way where you can broaden the value that you offer your company.
Yeah. Cool. So thank you so much. We have another question about how to use AI and community tools, but we're like 10 minutes overboard. I think we'll try.
I gotta go too. Yeah, over time. I got somewhere else to go.
So thank you so much for staying over. For those who stayed, thank you again, Mark, for sharing all your knowledge and all these answers and insights with us. Appreciate it. I think people got a lot of things to think about post this webinar and fireside chat. So thank you. Great having you.
Thank you, Gal. Thank you, audience, for the incredible engagement here today.
Cool.
All right. Bye-bye.